Greetings, Husker Nation. Welcome to episode 40 of Huskers Gameday podcast. This is Jeff Williams, one half of the Huskers Gameday duo. With me is one of the best experts in all of college football. It's Phil Steele. Phil, thank you for joining us on the Huskers Gameday.
Hey, a real pleasure being on, Jeff.
Phil, this is your second time on Huskers Gameday, and you were with us last year and guided us through. You were pretty accurate on your assessment of the Huskers last year. So how do you see a team that really struggled on offense but had a dynamite defense doing in 2010?
Yeah, as you pointed out last year, most of the college preseason magazines had Kansas winning the Big 12 North. I sort of went out on a limb and picked Nebraska, and the Huskers didn't disappoint me. Now, this year, I think, once again, the strength of Nebraska is going to be the defense. In fact, I rated a top 10 D. They're not going to allow 10 points per game like they did last year, which was best in the country, with the loss of a player like Ndamukong Suh. But they've got plenty of talent throughout the lineup, with my number 11 rated defensive line, led by Jared Crick and Pierre Allen. They've got my number 34 set of linebackers. And then my number 2 set of defensive backs in the country, led by Prince Amukamara. And I think when you look at the defense overall, while they won't allow 10 points per game, it'd probably be in the 16 to 17 level. That's still a top 10 defense. Now, the biggest improvement for Nebraska this year is going to be on the offensive side of the ball. They've got my number 12 rated offensive line. It's going to more resemble those pipeline additions that they've had in years past. They're also going to get more consistent quarterback play. Both Zach Lee and Cody Green now have experience. I look for significant improvement upon the 57% completions they had last year with the 16-12 ratio. I also like the running back combo of Helu and Burkhead. I think they'll be solid. And there's decent receiving talent like Niles Paul and Mike McNeil. Now, Nebraska last year had some pretty poor games offensively. 5 first downs against Texas, 7 against Oklahoma, 11 against Baylor. We're not going to see that this year. An improved defense, not a juggernaut defense, when combined with the offense, but when combined with the top 10 defense, they look very solid. And a hidden area, they've got my number 8 rated special teams in the country. I'm very bullish on Nebraska this year. In fact, after I write the magazine, I go through each and every game for the upcoming season and predict who I've got favored and who I've got an underdog. And I actually have Nebraska favored in all 12 games this year. In fact, I'm projecting a 12-0 Nebraska against a 12-0 Oklahoma. And, those two rivals not supposed to meet this year, but if they met in the Big 12 title game and perhaps the last meeting for quite some time, I think it would be a great finish for that rivalry.
Wow, Phil, I don't know where to start. That was just a great summary of the Huskers. But getting to the secondary, you said that they have the number 2 secondary in the country. Who has the number 1 secondary?
The number 1 secondary in the country this year belongs to, take a look here, Texas. Texas has my best secondary. Nebraska is number 2, and number 3 is Florida. Number 4 is Oklahoma. So believe it or not, 3 of the top 4 secondaries in my ratings are all in the Big 12.
Wow. Now, who do you think Nebraska has, with their defense? Do you think they have the best defense in the Big 12, or how is it comparable to really Texas and Oklahoma's D?
Well, those are the other 2 teams that are right up there with them. And in my national rankings, Texas comes up with the best defense in the Big 12. The second best defense in the Big 12 is Oklahoma. The third best defense is Nebraska. But I actually rate all 3 of those defenses in the top 5. And this is quite a change from 2-3 years ago when the Big 12 was mainly an offensive football conference. It's nice to see the defense coming back, but it's very close. But I rate Texas 1, Oklahoma 2, Nebraska 3.
With Nebraska's offense, how much stock do you put in to their improved performance in a bowl game such as the Holiday Bowl, where they seem to have it working on all cylinders and they seem to have a good mix of running and passing and even mixing in some options?
Yeah, I think confidence-wise, that really helps the team. It's going to help the team throughout the entire offseason because, the coaches can talk about, we're going to be improved and trying to get the team to be confident. But a performance like they had against Arizona, which was a very balanced attack, rushing for 223 yards, passing for 173, is going to give them much more confidence this season. So I'm looking for big things out of Nebraska, and the bowl game performance is a big reason for that.
Now, you seem like a very analytical guy, really into numbers. Now, Zach Lee's coming back with about a full season of starting. He except 2 games, and Cody Green started 2 games last year. Obviously it seems like Cody Green might have more quote-unquote upside, but how much stock do you put in that, what type of improvement from Zach Lee could one reasonably expect? Is there a similar case of a guy who's had, a really tough year but got a lot of experience, and then, I'm kind of thinking of Bill Stahl last year at Pitt. Do you see that type of improvement for Zach Lee?
Yeah, there's definitely that possibility, and it's whether Lee or Green wins a job. Remember, Cody Green last year was a freshman. He was thrown into the starting lineup all of a sudden and didn't really handle it well, but he's much better prepared this season. So whichever quarterback takes a job, you can expect significant improvement. Now, I mentioned last year the 2 quarterbacks combined to hit 57% completions with a 16-12 ratio. I'd be looking for more about 62, 63% completions this year with more of a, let's say, a 23-12 ratio.
How does their running backs, do you look at them pretty favorable? I mean, you have Roy Halou, who is usually, for the past 2 years, one of the Big 12's top rushers, but you also have a couple young guys, Burkhead and Robinson, who got some significant experience in playing time. Is there a buzz about the running backs?
Well, they're very good, and part of the reason that they're not getting as much national attention at the start of the year is probably Nebraska's overall offense last year. But Halou, as you mentioned, rushed for over 1,000 yards last year, averaged a nifty 5.2 yards per carry. And while Burkhead only averaged 4.3 YPC, I was very impressed whenever he was on the field. I thought he did an outstanding job as a true freshman running back last year. So this is one of the top running back cores in the country. I actually have them rated number 28 heading into the season, but they did make my top units in the front of the magazine.
Okay, well, Husker fans, we are talking to Phil Steele about the Nebraska Cornhuskers. Phil, you put out I'm paging through it. It's about a 330-page college football guide that's available at fine newsstands everywhere, and I believe you have a website too.
That's right. PhilSteele.com is the website. Now, the magazine is like getting 120 different media guides rolled into one, except it's a lot better than having 120 media guides on your desk because all the information is on the same place on every page for every team. And we get the same amount of coverage of a team like Ohio University or UL Monroe that we do Nebraska and Oklahoma. 2 full pages. You become an instant expert on each team. Now, the website is updated every single day throughout the season. I've got a daily blog up there. During the year, you can keep up to date with the latest stats for every single team. I project each and every game for the upcoming weekend, even if they're playing FCS foes. I've got all my projections up there, power ratings, and more. And the website, once again, is Phil Steele, Steele, PhilSteele.com. And if you like college football, you'll love the website. Just loaded with information on a daily basis. So check it out today, PhilSteele.com.
Phil, am I missing any more plugs? Do you do a radio gig, a weekly radio gig? Off the top of my head, I want to think you do.
Yeah, I do Rivals Radio every Friday on Sirius. I do ESPN with Eric Casillas every Saturday at 9:23. I do some local ones like in Virginia Beach, Houston, and Cleveland, but the national ones would be the ESPN one and the Rivals Radio.
So let's take it back to last year. 2009 Big 12 championship game. Nebraska goes toe-to-toe with Texas. It goes down to a controversial last second. We won't get into that. But between that game and really that game and the Holiday Bowl, what did that show you about Nebraska football? And were you at all surprised that Nebraska went toe-to-toe with Texas in that game?
No, anytime you've got a great defense like Nebraska had last year, you can win a football game. Put that type of defense on the field, you're in each and every game. And I think Nebraska proved that last year, even though they had 4 losses on the season. You look at some of the losses like Virginia Tech, a game they could easily have won, lost by a point. The Texas game, once again, lost by a point. I was not surprised that Nebraska gave Texas a great game and really could easily have won that if that ball had been ruled out of bounds or Texas missed a long field goal at the end of the game. And I just think it's good to see Nebraska football back to being in the powerhouse status. I looked at Nebraska for years as, sort of un-Nebraska type seasons, starting with 2004 when they were just 5 and 6. But now I've got them as a perennial top 10 team once again. And I think the move to the Big Ten, we're going to see Nebraska continue to stay in the top 10 in the preseason polls each and every year.
Now, we obviously don't know how the divisions break out, but do you see the move from Nebraska from the Big 12 to the Big 10 being a good fit for the program?
I do. I think it's a very good fit for Nebraska. I think they're in a Midwest mode, much like the Big 10. I think there'll be a powerhouse in the, let's say, Western division of the Big 10. I know they haven't set up the divisions yet, but they'll definitely will not be in the same division as an Ohio State. And hopefully for the Big 10, they put Ohio State and Michigan in one of the same divisions. And I think it would be great to see Nebraska. And I think most of the years you're going to see Nebraska playing in the Big 10 title game, and that's going to be good for Nebraska, and it's also good for the Big 10.
Now, before we wrap up, let's touch on the offensive line, because that seems to be a big predictor of success in college football. And you think that Nebraska really has one of their best offensive lines in years. Is there anyone individually? I know they have the new left tackle, Yoshi Hardwick. Is there anyone generating a lot of buzz, or is it just the extra year of experience and the added depth that makes gives you the upgrade on the offensive line?
Well, the majority of it up there is the fact that this unit's been together